Yeah, I felt a bit sorry for Alicia because at the time that they decide to have sex, she's feeling rejected by him and very vulnerable, and she's clearly a girl who has a low self-image anyway, and I'm sure that's how it happens an awful lot.
And there's a lot I've read and on other interviews with you about the autobiographical nature of previous books. You just mentioned it then briefly about Sam and your own experiences, but how much of Sam is you and your experience?
I think all the books, apart from Fever Pitch, which is literally about me, the rest are all some kind of emotional autobiography. So that, you know, none of those things happened to me in any of those books. But I think that as a writer, you use things that you felt and put them in the book in order to try and be accurate about the emotional state of the character. It doesn't feel like writing autobiography to me. I mean, I wasn't a skater, I wasn't a teenage dad, I had a different background from Sam. All of these things, all the autobiographical narrative details are different. But I wanted to understand what it felt like to be a 16-year-old who felt vulnerable and confused. And of course, I was that boy at one stage in my life.
And even more difficult, I think, probably, than trying to write like a teenager, is trying to write like a living skateboard legend. And I know quite a few of whether it's all Tony's quotes come from his own book.
Yeah, they do.
That from his real. How did you manage to have the authentic voice of the Californian?
No, it's all from his book. I just copied it out straightforwardly.
With Tony's approval? How did you get around that?
Yeah. It was with his approval. When I started, I presumed that Sam would be talking to a footballer,
right.
and yeah, it was. I thought going to be Thierry Henry, and I'd already used all those letters, all the THs. So I thought, who else is
right.
TH? But what you were saying, in fact, when you came up the stairs here, which is that you felt alienated from football at the moment. It's the more I thought about it, the more I thought that a kid like Sam wouldn't have the relationship with football that I had when I was a teenager. I don't think football is as cool for a certain kind of teenage boy as it used to be. It's so sort of Nikeized and ubiquitous and everywhere. And of course it's astonishingly expensive to go to a football match now. So most kids can only go 3 or 4 times a year, and they don't have the connection that I had when I was 16. I told someone the other day, it used to cost me the same to get into Arsenal as it cost me to go on the tube to get to Arsenal. And of course the numbers are ridiculous because I'm very old, but that was the balance. You paid public transport exactly the same entrance fee, and now it's of course 20 times what you pay on the tube. So I had to think about something else. I wanted something else for Sam that he would think was cool. And what interests me about Tony Hawk is that I don't think people of my generation know who he is at all. And yet, he's one of the most famous men in the world. So it was a perfect generation.
I was really surprised when I got the first book synopsis through, and no offence, that you knew who Tony Hawk was.
Well, the reason I knew who he was because a few years ago I got sent a Tony Hawk poster. And in this poster, he's holding High Fidelity. He's standing on the skateboard holding High Fidelity. He did it for an American library campaign. And I said to my publishers, why have you sent me a poster of a man standing on a skateboard holding my book? And they said, well, he's not really a man, he's Tony Hawk. And then I understood. So I knew that he read my stuff and liked it. So I got in touch with him through his management company and said, no, this is what I'm intending to do, and you'll be this guru to the boy. The boy talks to you all the way through, and you talk back with lines of your own autobiography. And I heard back from him, and he couldn't have been more sort of friendly and generous.
Do you know if he likes the book?
He said so. In fact, when I was doing an American book tour, he was doing an American tour promoting a video game, and I noticed on a couple of TV chat shows he was actually asked about the book. So I thought, this is brilliant. I'm sending this very famous person out on the road to promote my book.
It's a genius.
It is. I didn't realise it, of course, until way too late.
Talking genius bits of marketing, the campaign around Sam, was for young people to come forward and design their own posters of their bedroom heroes. Every kid had their heroes up on their wall. And Lily Allen, I believe, was the winner. Well, not Lily Allen herself, but as a poster of Lily Allen, for which there were some very circumspect reasons behind his choice. Boris Johnson was one of the runners-up, though. A poster of Boris Johnson submitted by a 20-year-old lad from Stockwell.
Yes. Well, I had to go through these posters, and you know, there was a Lily Allen and there was a James Brown, and there were all sorts of people, and then suddenly there was Boris Johnson, and I just burst out laughing, and it was quite nicely done as well. So I thought, well, that has to be in the short. It's just the sheer brass neck of entering Boris Johnson for a competition like that.
And who was yours? Who was your role model? Who's the poster you had on your wall?
Well, I wouldn't call him a role model, but there was an Arsenal player called Charlie George in the 1970s who was the sort of our version of George Best, the bad boy with the long hair. And also a blues rock guitarist called Rory Gallagher, who was my first rock hero.
He's on your iTunes playlist, celebrity playlist, I
believe.
As well as being surprised that you knew who Tony Hawk was, the first time I met you, you'd come to our office and we worked together on this amazing project called Spinebreakers.co.uk, which is a Penguin backed initiative where young people take on the challenge of reading, writing and taking apart, putting together books. And you were approached immediately by Jelly Ellie, 17-year-old, incredibly bright and forthright young woman, and you were immediately locked into a conversation about downloading this, that and the other, this, that, and the rest. And again, no offence, I was quite surprised. Was that you brushed up before you met the kids, or are you genuinely a bit of a geeky nerd?
I'm not a geeky nerd. The moment I understood what all this stuff was, I wanted the music. I always overcome my technophobia if I can see the immediate benefits. So my wife bought me an iPod, I think, quite some years ago, so 2001, 2002, I can't remember it. And I
that's pretty on it. That's like first generation.
Yeah, well, she's good like that. And I thought, well, I'm not going to want a gadget, and I'll never use it. And then she sort of explained to me patiently what it was, and my jaw dropped to my knees. And immediately I learned how to do it because I wanted to carry my music collection around in this little box. I think the website stuff comes from, well, to put it bluntly, doing nothing all day. I'm a writer, and I get distracted very easily, and I start messing about.
So what was the first bit, when you had the epiphany, what was the first piece of music you ever successfully downloaded?
Good grief, I have absolutely no idea. I think, it was probably the album I bought that week. I mostly use it for new music, it's easier to listen to new music that way.
What's on the iPhone at the moment? What's the new music you're listening to?
Well, I'm going to go and see Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings next week, Amy Winehouse's backing band, so I've been listening to them. There's a Canadian singer-songwriter called Kathleen Edwards, who I love. There's always something, I've always found something new.
Well, I enjoyed, and I urge you to go and enjoy Nick's celebrity playlist.
Oh, thank you.
It's quite alright. The tune that makes you bust a gut at the gym, I enjoy it.
As you can see, no gut has been busted.
And